One of the main things that I can actually say is that we really, in the black community, really have an overabundance of ignorance that tends to flow through our veins. And the sad part about, our ignorance is the fact that we don't really want to, I guess in a sense, keep it to ourselves. We really don't have any problem with letting other folks know how ignorant we can be. This particular presentation is actually, a message that I actually want to send out there to those who are pro-black. We oftentimes hear about, folks that are pro-black that belong to organizations such as, the Black Panthers, organizations like that actually supposedly are all about the correcting the injustices that's done against African Americans, setting the record straight, giving them, an equal voice in the community, that sort of thing. But when you actually look at some of the things that are actually being believed by people that belong to that particular organization, you have to, in a sense, kind of sit back and really question, for the most part, what they're saying. Sometimes in order to really understand people, you really have to look at their place as far as where they're coming from when they actually try to teach you something or try to instruct you, on what type of decisions to make. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because of an exchange that I actually had with someone on YouTube regarding a particular video that was actually done. It was about a little over 2 years ago, so it's not really a new video, but it's actually done by a person by the name of Adam Carolla. Now, I don't know if you all know Mr. Carolla, but Adam Carolla is one of those, I guess, controversial type people who really has no holdups or no holds barred when actually voicing his opinion, when he really feels passionate about something. But, again, there was a video that was posted where he actually gave his particular views on, things that he sees that's going on in the black community that he really looks at as a problem. And, you had a lot of pro-black folks that actually chimed in on the video and left little comments and such, and I'm pretty sure that you know what I'm alluding to because, again, a lot of things that they had to say, it's all about them not wanting to take responsibility for their actions, but wanting to take the easy road by blaming the white man. But my whole reasoning for actually wanting to do this, to do this video, is because we really have to be able to understand and really spot issues where somebody's trying to really railroad our thinking. Now we understand that we are living in times where change, the racial climate is changing, views and everything like that also is changing as well. But there are certain things that we as black folks choose to keep in our brain cells. And like I say, not only do we choose to keep it in our brain cells, we choose to hold on to it as if there is no other way around it. We'll never get over it. We just have to deal with it. There is, it's just something that we have to face and really live, govern our way of living, around, certain concepts. And one of the main concepts that I see that is still really rampant in our community, and I'm not talking about the white community because, again, I'm only talking about the pro-black folks, is the ever so, how can I put this? The only thing that I actually see that is actually constantly being, that we're actually being reminded of through through the education of our own and what we're giving to our young, is our continuous mistrust of anybody who happens to not be black. In this case, white. We understand that slavery ended, decades ago. And like I said, the Jim Crow era, we already know about that. And pretty much our, the things that we had to do through our marches and everything that we had to go through in order to, become racially equal in the United States. I mean, like I said, we had to endure a lot. And, and that is something that is a part of our legacy. But you actually have some people that actually look at that and actually take it a bit too far. And one of the main people that I actually want to address this video to is those who are pro-black. Those who actually look at everything as black and white. Those who look at things that, anytime they fail to get something done, they look at it as not something that they can't reach, but they look at it as an opportunity for them to blame. And I hate that we are always, we continue to really keep ourselves in that mindset, because when you look at the overall philosophy or ideology of what the pro-blacks stood for, I mean, on the surface, it's good. I mean, like I say, no one really looked out for blacks, so they actually, had an organization that, that was created so we can actually, have a voice. I get all of that, but when you look further inside there and pretty much what the philosophy teaches black folks, I call foul. And really, it's a shame that we don't really look at it for what it is. I mean, because it's destroying us actually, rather than actually bringing us together, if you really look at it. Because anybody with normal common sense, any type of intelligence, I mean, I cannot sit there and blame someone or blame a white person who may be a neighbor of mine, saying that I don't like you because, of what your ancestors did to my people. To tell somebody that in this day and time, I mean, you deserve a quick slap in the face. I mean, honestly. The folks that actually caused all of that, the black folks that actually endured all of that, God bless their souls. Both parties, both colors, both races are pretty much, for the most part, are either in nursing homes today or they're dead and gone. I cannot go back and relive the past and change anything. And those who are out there who are advocating that we actually become very resentful to white folks because of, slavery, they really need to really wake up and understand that we are all living in this earth together. But the issue with this particular video is the fact that I cannot believe of, how many people, black folks, actually was on the attack from the very beginning. Not even wanting to sit there and really listen to what this particular white man had to say. The first thing that they actually were focused on, again, is the fact that he's a white man. That's it. And that's what we do sometimes. Like I say, and most of us, we still fall victim of it. Anytime something happens or something, opportunity comes or whatever, or somebody wants to help us with something, and a lot of black folks may not admit this, but the first thing that we want to know is he white or black? That's pretty much, and I can say that with full confidence, that's what goes on in the black community, because I've seen it myself. But we have to kind of look at and get out of the live out of the residuals of slavery. That's not to say that to ignore what happened, because it is what it is. But I don't have to be a product of that. I'm not a product of that. I am aware that it happened to the people of my ancestry, but I am not a product of slavery. I didn't live through slavery. Okay, my parents were not they did not live through slavery. Maybe their parents did, or whatever the case may be, but me personally, I didn't. So with that being said, I have no reason to actually have any type of ill feelings against someone who happens to be white. But again, the pro-black person, they don't see it that way. They look at the fact that anytime you say anything otherwise or offer any type of intelligent reasoning, you are all of a sudden a sellout. You're an Uncle Tom. We've seen it all. But, I just wanted to kind of go into the comments for the most part to kind of give you an overview of what's going on and how black folks think and how other people think as well. So I'm going to actually go in and start this off. I'm going to be doing 3 comments because I don't want this video to drag out. But I wanted to actually go in there and let you see 3 comments that people left here, and then I'll go in and give my particular opinions about it, and then we'll take it from there. Now, when I'm actually going through this particular video here, as I just mentioned previously before, I actually wanted to kind of see here, the recent comments that actually was done. Because, again, this particular video, for the most part, has garnered so many, the video is like, I don't know, it's quite old. This was done almost 2 years. This is actually over 2 years old. Like I say, so for the most, for the most part, like it's not really... nothing that has been done recently, but it's still garnering even comments to this particular day. But like I say, out of everything that particular individual said, very few people, black folks, really got what this particular individual was saying. You had a lot of black folks that actually took offense to what he was saying simply because, they're looking at the fact that you have a white man talking about the issues and what we need to do to correct our own, but they really failed to really listen in and really listen to what this particular individual had to say. Like I said, I'm not going to actually go in and actually post, or record any of the video, but for the most part, you can go in and listen, listen to it for yourself to really see what he was trying to say. But this particular podcast was actually in response to one of his African American listeners, and they actually, he wanted to respond, to whatever it is that that particular person actually wanted, answer some issues that he wanted to actually clarify, or whatever the case may be. Adam Carolla actually wanted to explain something to him about the issues that he see in the black community. But I wanted to go and scroll through and really let you just see just some of the comments of people, like I say, and just to see where their head is at for the most part. Now you have, excuse me, this particular individual, let me see, and he says here, and I'll just go ahead and highlight it here because it's kind of hard. I had heard about this podcast about Adam going off on the black people, and almost as a reflex emotional response, I assumed that he was attacking the black community. As a result, I avoided actually listening to this podcast for the longest time. Today, for whatever reason, I decided to judge for myself. After what I just listened to, I can honestly say that there was not one racist thing said about black people. It took major balls to even touch this topic. One that I can't even read this morning. One that most famous black people avoid like the plague. Now, if you notice, actually, when I was reading the post, the first thing that this particular individual wanted to do, he's really wanted to avoid the common mistake that he actually, I guess that he accused most black people of making, which is becoming very emotional. And I think that was very crucial on his part because, again, when we as black Americans, African Americans, however you want to look at it, when we feel like we're being attacked, the first thing that we do is we get emotional, and next thing you know, we become irrational, and logic pretty much goes out the door. But for the most part, he actually had to agree for the most part with everything that was said. Of course, after he said, again, he had to get over the part about his emotions, and he really had to really understand really where he was coming from. I mean, like I say, and I think a lot of times, when you actually find people, African Americans or whatever, that can agree for the most part with what white folks are saying, especially when it's about your own kind, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth for fellow African Americans. I mean, because the first thing that they're going to say, they're going to attack them saying, how can you be turn on your own people and stuff like that. And see, one thing about it, in the course of living, we got to understand is that truth comes from many people. And it comes through many different assets. It comes through many different, resources. And then, like I say, it can come through many different mouths. And I mean, the thing about it is that we are still, even in this year, 2014, we are still living in the residuals of slavery. And for some reason, we just will not, for the most part, most African Americans, for the most part, will not let that go. Because we feel that that is something that we can wear as pride for the simple fact that we can't get where we want to get. So we'll use something to try to get us there. And see, again, I would say again that people are waking up, and this particular type of thinking, it's not working anymore. And the reason why we know it's not working anymore is because a lot of black folks are waking up and realizing, okay, we've used this and we've played this long enough. Okay, sooner or later, we're going to have to get up and have to prove ourselves, But again, it's sad when you actually run across and run into people, who are comfortable, with doing that. And I mean, and like I said, when you become comfortable in doing that, we have a problem, because now it's like the fact that you really don't want to actually get up and be productive or whatever. You just want to do the simple thing, which is to go and blame white America for all of your problems. And see, one thing about it, again, is that each of us are born with the ability to think, reason, and come to our own conclusions. And we have to really look at it just as that, as our, conclusions. And for the most part, we have to be prepared to really handle what comes from our actions and not blame somebody just because, of what happened in the past. And like I say, it's a shame, that you still have some people, and like I said, I actually had my fair share of conversating with someone who actually, and it was on this video, but I didn't want to go into that too much, but it was one of the ones who actually still think that white folks are the enemy. I don't praise white folks. I'll be quick to say that, and I don't mind saying that. But like I say, I don't hate, no, I don't hate them either. Like I say, I have to love everybody. I have to. I mean, if I'm claiming to be saved, I got to. There's no question about it. Each race has issues and things that we have to face. And the thing about it is that whenever you choose to face it, that's when we can actually come to some sort of resolution. But as it looks now, we're still living in that particular mind frame, even with all of the things that we actually have and resources that we have to make us better people. We'll still throw that away because, again, we already know that it's going to take work to get, in addition to those resources, to get where we are. And sometimes, for the most part, we simply don't want to put in the work. But I'm going to go ahead and let's look at the second comment, if we would, please. Now we actually have another comment here, scrolling down and keeping along with the same thing of trying to, just view people's opinions and everything. This one came from someone by the name of King RL. Okay, this was actually posted 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to highlight this so you can actually see. And it says here, this is why white people have no right to speak on other people's problem. They either don't fully understand or don't want to acknowledge they understand the real problem. Systematized racism. If a child's father is dead or is in prison, there is little to no option for them to make it. Simple as that. Adam makes it seem as if black people are just having kids and simply walking away with, here saying that is not the case. Now, I'm not going to actually sit there and say, what he was actually thinking when he said a lot of the things that he said in his video. Like I said, now, what I'm going to say is that there are exceptions to every rule. I don't care what you say, or what we may be presented with. But you have to look at the fact that, what Adam was talking about, Mr. Corolla was talking about, for the most part, is generally speaking. I mean, and I'm assuming that he's smart enough to know that what he's saying is not true for every household, because every household, has their own unique circumstances, But the issue is that when somebody actually says something, about black folks, whether it's true or not, the first we have this knee-jerk reaction to get offensive, and then we say, okay, well, since he says that, he's talking about all of us, all the black folks. And see, when I run across people that actually think that way, I look at them and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not trying to defend him, his way of thinking or whatever the case may be. And I mean, he could have been coming from a bad place when he did the video. I don't know. I mean, but that still doesn't take away from the validity of what he was saying. But it's just the fact that we have to understand and know that he does not know the circumstances of what goes on in every household, because each and every household is different. Like I said, we have to look at the fact that, we have children that are being raised, in households where, the father or the mother, whatever the case may be, may have, been deceased or whatever, and the remaining parent has to they are left to, do the best they can with what they have. I mean, like I say, again, I understand where he was coming from with that, because again, there are exceptions to every rule, but we have to understand and be able to properly apply this thing and not get so offended when somebody actually, voices their take on a situation. It doesn't matter if they were Chinese or whatever the case may be, because one thing about it, again, is that I still say is that if this man was any other race other than white, I don't think that we would actually have a big backlash from the black community. I mean, like I say, you may have still had some black folks that may have set up there, may have, put in their little 2 cents or whatever. But like I say, you wouldn't see almost every other comment on this board where it's a black person attacking this man just because, of what he was saying. And we all know it's like that elephant in the room syndrome. We already know the reason why he's doing that, or the reason why the black community is actually lashing out at him, is because, again, he's white. Like I say, and you may have a lot of white black folks, and they know that that's the reason, that they're saying what they're saying, but they're not going to actually say it, or voice it, which is another thing is that we don't want to face the truth. Like I say, it's one thing that we have to understand, and we look at the truth as something that is going to make us weak. And I really would hope and wish that we would get out of that type of mind frame, because again, the truth comes only to correct and make better, not to weaken and make vulnerable. And I believe that when we actually as black people stand up and really accept the truth, criticism, whatever you want to call it, and look at it for what it is, as a tool that is going to help us, to become better people, regardless of who it comes from. You know, it'll really help us out in the long run. I believe, and like I say, this just could be me, and I could be going off on a tangent here, is that the reason why most black folks really don't want to listen to what white folks say, even if it is the truth, is because, again, of what white folks stand for in their particular minds. Most black folks, even in this day and time, like I say, we're living in a land of the free and the home of the brave and all that other good stuff. We've actually, again, learned to distrust white folks, regardless of whether or not they are actually there for us, for our good or not. We learn that anything that is not black is an automatic enemy. And, it's costing us greatly, to tell you the truth. It's really costing us a lot because, again, nobody gets anywhere in this world without actually getting help from somebody. I mean, if you're actually on the road of attending or acquiring something great, you're going to have to get help get help somewhere along the line. And most of the time, it's going to come from someone who happens to not be black. I have no problem actually, getting help from someone, again, who may not be black. As a matter of fact, since we're on the topic of talking about it in that way, most of my accomplishments came from folks that were not black. That's not to say that I praise white folks, I'll say it again, but it's the fact that I appreciate help whenever it's offered, regardless of whose hands or what the color of their hands may be. To sit up there and tell my child, or for a parent to tell their child not to accept help when it's offered from white folks, you're setting them up for failure. And a lot of people don't understand, the reason why we have a lot of children, like I say, that are out there on the streets or whatever, not having anything productive to do or whatever, because, and like I say, we look at that and we sit up there and we automatically, blame, the parents and everything like that for the child out there. But the issue is, again, is that it comes from really ignorance. Like I say, sometimes, you have some black parents that won't allow their children to have white friends simply because of the color of their skin, because of what they represent. You never know. Like I say, opportunities come in many different aspects. Black person befriends a white person. Next thing you know, the parents get involved. Next thing you know, the parents become good friends or whatever. And next thing they become, they can open up something that is great, like possible business opportunities and stuff like that. Something that can actually help both parties. I mean, like I said, you can't just sit there and close off and be closed-minded just because, again, the color of somebody's skin, assuming that just because they're white, they're automatically out there to try to take advantage of you. I mean, that is not, that is not the proper way to look at it, because, again, when you look at things like that, you limit your growth. And see, the older generation, they're pretty much under the notion that they've lived their life. But yet still, why would you actually limit the life of the young folks just because you want to sit there and hold some sort of alt against someone who really hasn't done anything to you personally? I mean, so it's kind of crazy here, but like I say, let's go on to, the third and the last comment. This is the last comment that I'm actually going to look at here, and I'm going to go ahead and end it with this particular comment here, and it's by Ray Moore, who actually posted this comment about 2 months ago. And it says here, I agree with this guy on the subject. Let me highlight this. I agree with this guy on the subject. The greatest common denominator in the equation is there are way too many black children who are not raised in a solid family structure where the mother and the father are present in active roles, fathers are present and active roles are demonstrated. Too many black women have been bamboozled into believing they can raise kids by themselves. Compared to countries like China, Korea, Poland, etc., 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 the United States is a country going nowhere because instead of sensationalizing scholastic academia like mathematics, science, engineering, etc., the United States focuses on sensationalizing embellishments like dancing, athletics, entertainment. Thus, this is the reason why black people in the United States are completely lost. Wow, that is very, very strong. And actually, that particular comment is not nothing new. I mean, for especially for us in the black community, because we already know that for the most part, we see many videos here on YouTube that are addressing issues, even to this day, regarding situations and circumstances that are causing our young black generation to go astray, to go and create crimes and, selling drugs and just a whole bunch of unfavorable type of things. And the core reason for that, like I say, and like this individual said on the post there, is that it has a lot to do with, what's going on in the home. And again, for the most part, you have a great majority or a greater percentage of black households that do not contain two parents, and for the most part, it really does affect, the black community. And we see the reason why, how it affects. It's robbing really the black community of what it could be or what they could become. A lot of children, and again, just because you have a one-parent household, that does not automatically mean that your child is going to turn to crime, become, extremely effeminate and, either that or grow up to really sell drugs or be in prison. I mean, like I say, there again are exceptions to every rule in the book, but what we have to understand is that we got to really be able to readily identify our issues. And I say our issues because, again, this is only something that we can correct. I mean, it's good that you actually sit there and may be able to take, into consideration what other folks has to say, but it's nothing like actually being readily available to attack your issue and solve your problem on your own. Being proactive and really wanting to say, okay, you know what? I see a problem here. I don't want to wait for somebody else to tell me how to correct my own. I'm going to take the initiative and do it myself. And I think that once we become that type of society, we'll see a dramatic decrease in a lot of things that's going on in our communities. Like I say, I'm not saying that that'll actually be the end all be all for our issues and our woes, but at least it'll actually help us to lessen the likely, the occurrences that we actually see of these particular things that are going on in our neighborhoods. We'll begin to really police ourselves and really hold ourselves accountable for our own mess ups and not really be more apt to blame other folks. So this particular presentation is actually, again, just something that I actually wanted to kind of put out there because, again, pro-black folks, like I say, you can understand and I guess you can see where they pretty much mean well, but the philosophies that they actually have is nothing for the most part. It's pretty much poison to the undiscerning ear. And, we have to be able to guard against and really know, okay, I cannot live my life based on what people of the past or what other folks may have as far as their issues with other people, because that's their issue. It's not mine. And whenever I run across an issue where I'm treated, in a way that I don't deserve, I'll be able to handle it on my own terms in my own way and not by what somebody else has to say based on what happened to them in the past. Okay, so that's all that I actually have for now. Have a good day, people.